Hi, I'm Jake.
And I'm Marlin.
Welcome to another Fresh from the Theater review. It's been a while since we did this in the truck, but it's not as hot as it was a few months ago, so it gives us a good opportunity to, once again, borrow from the midnight screening style. And we just got out of seeing Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, his much-awaited film about the massacres of the Osage people in the 1920s. And to quote Ricky Gervais when he talked about The Irishman a few years ago, great film, long but great. I love Martin Scorsese, but this is actually the first time I've ever seen one of his movies in the cinema. Didn't get much chance when I was younger, and The Irishman, I think that was like a limited release when it came out, because it went right to Netflix. And this film was originally supposed to come out early in October. It was supposed to premiere on like Apple TV and then go to theaters, but then they decided to just put out in theaters later in October, so here we are. And I'm glad I got to see this on the big screen, because goddamn, this was quite a spectacle to watch visually.
Yes, quite a spectacle. It was long, but it was quite a spectacle to watch. It kept you engaged throughout the entire period. And
much like Casino, like that was a long movie, but it kept you invested all the way to the end. And this film, yeah, it kept me into it. I was watching, I kind of knew how it was going to end, because obviously, true story, I read how it actually went down, but it's one of those films where even if you know how it ends, it keeps you going. And everybody, the cast, this was a great cast. The actors were Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Lily Gladstone, who I'm not familiar with, but after seeing this, she was the very impressive member, like the lesser known of the main cast, and they had a bunch of good supporting actors who we'll get into later. Sum it up quickly, what were your initial thoughts about this film?
I'm not sure, actually, it was quite a thing. The history of it, it's just like another tale out of the West in the 20th century. They even in this film spoke about the slaughter of the black people in Oklahoma City as part of this film. Just referenced it appropriately because of the time.
Yeah. They reference a lot of stuff. There's a lot of heavy themes here, ranging from greed, manipulation, interracial marriage, and theme of just how much people actually would give a shit about these kind of things, particularly when it comes to the murders of Indians. And there's a great scene near the end with De Niro that I won't get into too much, but really pushes the point home regarding these type of tragedies. The idea that eventually people just won't care.
Yes. This film was a very complex story and character development, and things that appeared to be one thing in the beginning of the movie began to be revealed as more and more and more corrupt as time went on. All of a sudden, people found themselves doing things, cooperating with things, helping with things that they never would have undertaken earlier in the relationship and so forth. And so manipulation is a huge character manifestation in this movie.
The manipulation is particularly with De Niro's character, like Leonardo DiCaprio, he does a great job playing just, in my opinion, a completely spineless little worm. And
yeah, and it doesn't catch on too well on what's really going on. He just takes people's word for things and says, well, okay. There's a lot of that for a good part of the movie.
at times he, like, particularly when he's with his uncle, De Niro's character, like the idea is he's De Niro's nephew and he's being manipulated and he knows a little of the shadiness but doesn't realize he's just kind of a fly that's waiting to get squashed at some point. But he does a great job playing this character who is bad, but we see he's not completely, in some parts, he's not completely blackened. But De Niro, as William Hale, he is, like, De Niro's a great actor, and some people said in his later years, people feel that he kind of goes through the motions with his De Niro-isms. But here, he plays a very, like, he is bad. There's not really any redeeming qualities to him, but he plays a very complicated character, and he reminds me, like, the best thing I can compare him to is, like, you have characters on, like, The Shield, the cop show, like Vic Mackey, Shane Vendrell, who are evil, but they are so fascinating to watch as human beings, and that's the thing. All these characters, like DiCaprio, De Niro, they are, or Ernest and Hale, they are fascinating people to watch as they go from bad to even worse, and I just loved watching De Niro in this.
Yes, he was he peeled off the onion layers, if you will, a Shrek reference. To all of a sudden you just found out how evil and crooked he was, and he still talked about the Lord and the Bible and going to heaven and all this other kind of stuff. He was just evil.
And he knew how to play the folk like a fiddle. And Lily Gladstone as Molly Burkhart, the tragic character of the film, I thought she was a pretty good surprise. Like her character, she's not stupid, but she falls in love with the wrong man, and as she goes on, you can tell she's figuring out, but she's in a very bad place, mix of being in love and also being very sick physically. And sad to watch, but you just kept watching, having some hope that she could eventually get away.
And she did. But yes, it was kind of a spectacle of how unconcerned people can be with other people's plights that they see as less than them. And that's how it all developed, and she was essentially the heroine in the movie because she
despite being so sick, she still went forward and tried to get justice for her people, and
succeeded in a certain level for sure.
And it was unclear, but you were hoping, and again, you just wanted to see it all the way through. And with Guy, we try to not get into too many spoilers. And it's hard with this, because, like, the opening with the manipulation set in place, that's the most we can say, but I think by the end, it's not gonna leave you feeling happy, but I feel like there is a sense of satisfaction with the way it turned out by the end.
Yes, the good guys did show up and took the covering off of the evil that was going on. That happened. It was messy, but that happened.
The supporting cast, the the book it's based on has the subtitle of Killers of the Flower Moon, the Osage Murders, and the Birth of the FBI, which I think you can explain a little better than me.
Well, it was, they needed the FBI because there was no federal police back in those days. And they began to see it because there are a lot of federal crimes, And I think that the underlying need was demonstrated to Congress, and they put forth the first police force, a federal police force, because I think the federal government found out the states were corrupt, or at least enough corruption throughout the states so that the local power brokers got away with murder in more than just a general reference. So this is the beginning, and J. Edgar Hoover was mentioned because he appointed the person that led the group that came out to see what was going on.
And that person is Tom White, played by Jesse Plemons, who isn't as big a character as the mains, but I did like watching him. He seemed straightforward, and it's clear he was not going to back down till he found out everything.
Yes, he was obviously steadfast in turning over rocks.
And a lot of people know Jesse Plemons, like, he's done a bunch of stuff, but a lot of people know him, I think, for playing the sociopathic drug dealer and killer from Breaking Bad. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see him play a more heroic role. And I liked him in this, and the only other two major actors who were kind of featured in the advertisements, one was John Lithgow, who doesn't appear until the last, 40 minutes, playing the prosecutor, who's trying to take down, put William Hale away. And it's not a big role, but Lithgow, he's got the strong presence to play that kind of character. And the only other big supporting actor is a big shock, the last person you'd ever expect to see in a Martin Scorsese movie was Brendan Fraser, who plays the small but still memorable role as Hale's attorney, W.S. Hamilton. And you could tell this is around the time he was probably making The Whale, because Fraser is big in this.
Yeah, he ain't George in the Jungle anymore. So not in this film, not at all.
But yeah, it's small, but he plays a good, I guess, slimy lawyer well.
Yeah. I myself am not appreciative when you find out this is a story that's loosely based on a set of facts. This isn't that kind of movie. This is taken pretty strictly out of a wonderful, almost documentary, but a history of what went on. And I've read a couple other reviews from historians, or not from people who like history, and he says the only thing is that this movie downplayed or didn't show the true estimated number of Osage murders. But I could understand by seeing the movie what they did and how they developed all the murders, and they showed them. After a while, you can't show 100 murders. And so they worked to show the multiple, unexcusable, ignored murders. They got that point across. So other than that, this has got a good rap from people who have read the fairly recent book on it, which we got wonderful praise from respected literary critics.
And a big part that some people kept pestering Scorsese about was how were the Osage people going to be represented, and I think they were represented very well, and they were not one note, and part of me almost wanted them to be misrepresented just so that people could be like, fuck all ya, but no, I mean that in a joking way, because everybody was on his ass, because that's kind of what people do these days. How are you going to represent? But I think they did it pretty well here, and the final shot of this film, the music, was just fucking beautiful.
Yes, it was. As far as the representation of the tribal, all of the tribal characters representing the OJ, the film itself showed how complex the interaction of the bad guy, that nobody thought was a bad guy, was there. And so these people were, not because they're stupid, it's just that it's so complicated, so devious, that it only started to come around after a while.
And we see all different types of people in the Osage group. We see those who are very in tune with the old ways, some who are moving with the new ways, and some who are just in the middle and pretty messed up. Everybody's got their troubles. And yeah, I thought this was a solid 3.5-hour movie, which is a hard fucking thing to do, and this has been quite a year for us to see long-ass movies.
Yes, I'm ready to see some good 90-minute movies again.
Yeah, like we saw Oppenheimer, which had some strong parts. I had a hard time getting into it. We saw Beau is Afraid, which was just goddamn excruciating. And I bring this up because Martin Scorsese is a huge admirer of Ari Aster, who made Beau is Afraid.
Yeah.
He likes his movies. He even gave a lot of praise to Beau is Afraid. And I saw a few days ago somebody retweeted something that Scorsese said, that apparently the pacing of Killers of the Flower Moon was influenced by Ari Aster's films Midsommar and Beau is Afraid. And when I heard that, I'm like, as long as it's more Midsommar than Beau is Afraid, because that made me a little nervous to hear that. But nope, this one had much better pacing. It kept me a lot more interested than Beau is Afraid.
Yes.
I was not sitting here hoping it would end.
Yes, exactly. It was a fine film.
And the last thing that I will say, because again, don't want to get too deep into the spoilers, but the last thing I'll say that I think is a pretty good non-spoiler note to go out on is visually, as I said earlier, this film is magnificent. It's a spectacle. And I remember when I watched the original trailers, all I could think was, this looks almost on par with Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven, which was a beautiful film. Not as long as Killers of the Flower Moon, but it had a very unusual, unorthodox pace to it. And both those movies have themes of manipulation, marriage with ulterior motives. So I think in a way, this film could kind of be seen as Scorsese's Days of Heaven. A little better to understand, but both films I really enjoyed, and I totally recommend checking out Killers of the Flower Moon if you have the patience and the bladder for it. And if not, you can always stream it on Apple TV. It'll be there soon enough. And that's about it. Thank you for joining me as always, Guy.
Glad to join you.
And I will see you again, hopefully soon. Keep cinema alive.